Silverback. Jack felt something tugging on his sleeve, and he opened his eyes. Bubba! The small gorilla was staring at him in the daylight. Jack stood up, and his arms and his legs felt stiff and achy. His wet clothes stuck to his skin, and he looked around the cloud forest. Misty sunlight shined through the tree branches. "Where's Annie?" he asked the small gorilla. Bubba waved his arms. Then he bounded off between the trees. Jack pulled on his pack and followed. As the small gorilla led him through the cloud forest, her head bobbled above the leafy plants. Finally, she stopped before a row of shrubs. Jack took a step forward and peered over the shrubs. "Aw, man," he whispered. Large, dark figures were sleeping in an open grassy area. Gorillas! There were at least 10 of them. Some slept on their backs, some slept on their bellies, and the gorillas were all sizes. The smallest was a baby sleeping in its mother's arms, and the biggest was a giant with black and silver fur. Jack pulled the book over his pack. He found a chapter on gorillas and read. Mountain gorillas live together in the families. The leader of the family is a large male called a silverback because he has silver fur on his back and shoulders. Gorillas do not hunt other animals. They mainly eat the plant growth of the forest. They are known to be shy and gentle giants. Shy and gentle giants? Jack repeated. That sounded good. He peered over the shrubs again. Bubba waved at him, and she was standing at the far edge of the clearing, and she pointed to something tall in the grass. Something in the tall grass. Annie was fast asleep in the grass. Jack didn't know what to do. If he called her name, the gorillas would wake up. He had only one choice. He had to sneak over to her. Jack put his book in his pack, and he pushed past the shrubs and stepped into the clearing. His heart was pounding, and he thought of the words from the book, shy and gentle giants. As he started toward Annie, he heard a grunt. The giant gorilla with silver fur opened his eyes, and then the gorilla saw Jack. He sat up. Jack stopped in his tracks. The gorilla just glared. This giant did not seem shy or gentle at all, and Jack saw a stick lying on the ground. He picked it up just in case. Jack's stick made the gorilla growl, and he stood up. He was very tall and very wide. Jack dropped his stick. Bubba ran and hid behind a tree. The silverback growled again, and his long, shaggy arms touched the gorilla. His fingers curled under, walking on his knuckles. He stepped toward Jack. Jack stepped back. The gorilla stepped forward, and Jack stepped back again. The gorilla kept stepping forward. Jack kept stepping back until he stepped out of the clearing. But the silverback kept coming. Jack stumbled back toward the brush until he came to a thick wall of plants. The gorilla kept coming. Jack couldn't move back anymore. Hi, he said nervously, and he held up his hand. "I come in." Before Jack could say peace, the giant went crazy. He hooted and leaped to his feet, and Jack crouched down in a panic. The gorilla kept hooting. He grabbed a tree limb, and he shook it wildly. He ripped leaves from branches. He gnawed his teeth. He cupped his hands. He beat his claws. Rah! He roared. Rah! The gorilla dropped on all fours, and he charged back and forth past Jack. Then he threw himself on his belly. He began bashing the ground with his palms, and he bashed, and he bashed, and he bashed. Jack scrambled on his knees and his hands and his knees over to a tree, and he hid behind the trunk, hugging his head. He waited for the manic gorilla to find him and tear him into pieces. Chapter 6, Good Morning Gorillas. The pounding ended, and there was silence, a long silence. Jack opened his eyes, and he peeked around the tree. The silverback was sitting on the ground. His lips were curved in a smile. He looked pleased with himself. Was his whole act a fake? Jack wondered. Jack didn't know whether to be scared or to laugh, and the only thing he did know was he still had to get Annie. Jack pulled out the research notebook. He found the gorilla chapter. He read, "To safely get close to the gorillas in the wild, it's wise to act like a gorilla yourself. Crouch down and rest on your knuckles like a gorilla. Keep your head down and act friendly." Jack packed up his research book. He put his pack on his back. Then he went down on his knees. Jack took a deep breath and he smiled a friendly smile. Pressing down on his knuckles, he moved out from behind the trees. His fingers hurt as he walked on them. The silverback grunted. Jack didn't look up, and he kept smiling a friendly smile as he crawled through the brush toward the clearing. When he got to the edge of the clearing, he glanced back. The giant gorillas were following him. He was frowning, but he didn't seem about to attack. Jack kept going. He moved to the clearing, then he stopped. More gorillas were waking up, and a large gorilla hugged Bubba as if to comfort her. When Bubba saw Jack, she screeched joyfully. All the other gorillas turned to look at him. They made nervous sounds. Jack's heart pounded, but he just smiled his friendly smile and kept crawling. He crawled around the gorillas and over to Annie. "Wake up," he said, shaking her. Annie yawned, then opened his eyes. "Oh, hi," she said. "Are you okay?" asked Jack. "Sure," she said. She sat up and looked around. She gasped. The gorillas were staring at Jack and Annie with bright, darting eyes, and the silverback stared the hardest. "Oh, wow," said Annie. A joyful smile closed her eyes. "Good morning, gorillas."